This is the eXF 9039B by Superior. Now, Superior isn't a bike company that you have probably heard a lot of here in the United States, but they've been around for decades overseas. They primarily specialize in XC style race bikes, but with the eXF 9039B, you're getting an eMTB that's gonna be an all mountain category with a little bit of their heritage when it comes to the feel of how this bike rides. On this bike, you're gonna get some things that are gonna be a little bit unique to an all mountain bike in comparison to some of the other brands that are gonna be out there. Like for instance, on the bars that come on this bike, you are going to get a much flatter design where the tradition on an all mountain rig is going to give you a little bit more rise and maybe sweep back. But on this particular bike, you're going to get a 760 mil bar on the size large that's going to have this flat XC style profile. Not only that, the stack height is a little bit different on this bike right out of the box. Some find it to be just a little bit too high, but for my preferences, coming from more of an XC style trail background, I felt like the stack height was really comfortable along with these flat bars. Now this bike comes equipped with quite a bit of travel. Up front, you're gonna get this RockShox Lyric. It's gonna have 160 millimeters of travel. What I really like about this particular fork is it's extremely robust. It's made perfect for eMTBs. You've got a lot of adjustments along with the ability to add or remove tokens. What was really cool in my particular setup, whenever I received the bike from Bikes Online, it actually came with 2 extra tokens in the box. So if you want to get that detailed with your adjustments by adding or removing tokens, it's nice to see that they came right in the box. Now to match that front Lyric, you do get a RockShox Super Deluxe Select piggyback style rear shock. This thing is super plush. It's probably one of the nicer rear suspensions that I have used other than the Fox Float with the piggyback style. These particular shocks really do perform well on continuous rough sections. Having the piggyback style shock really allows the shock to stay extra cool during those long, intensive runs. Now, as for the drive system in this, Superior didn't mess around one bit. They went with the Bosch CX motor, and as of right now, this is one of the highest rated motors you can get out on the market. If you look at any reviews of any e-bikes out there, typically the ones that have the Bosch CX motor generally wind up being some of the higher end bikes. This particular motor has 85 Newton meters of torque and a massive 600 watts of peak power. This is combined with the Bosch 750 watt hour battery that can give you an estimated 90 miles of ride time on eco mode. Now you're going to get several different modes that will go all the way from eco, trail, sport, all the way up to boost mode. This is going to give you the ability to really fine tune exactly the riding that you want and cater it to the particular trail that you're going to be on. If you want to go for a really long distance and get a nice workout in, you can put it in some of the lower settings like eco, but if you're out for a relatively short ride or you're racing the bike, you can slam this thing into boost mode and really take advantage of the full power of the Bosch CX motor. Now, as far as range in boost mode, I've been extremely impressed. I've got a couple of different e-bikes from the Aventon to the Marin Riftzone E1, and I've got to say this Bosch motor, even in the boost setting, was really impressive. I did around 25 miles one day in full boost mode, pushing this bike as hard as I could, and I still had right around 50% battery life left, which was extremely impressive. Now with that large battery and my experience so far on racing this bike in boost mode, I definitely feel like this is a bike that I would want to pick out if I was wanting to go on a really long bike ride, say upwards of 30 to 40 miles on single track trail. I feel like I could just move between all the different settings and be confident that I wouldn't be stuck out in the middle of nowhere with no power left in the bike. So the typical retail price on this bike comes in right around $6,000, but as of recording this video, Bikes Online has it on sale for an impressive $3,799. So if you've been on the fence with purchasing one of these e-bikes, or if you've been looking at this particular one for a while, I'm not sure that the price could get much lower, and I would be a little bit concerned with the price possibly going up. So you may want to check it out sooner than later. But with that price point, I really think the Bosch motor and the Shimano drivetrain that you're going to get on this, you're getting a really solid bike. Now let's take a look at the drivetrain on this bike. It does come with a pretty much full Shimano setup. You're going to get the Shimano 12-speed Dior shifter up front, which is a really reliable, tried and true shifter. I haven't had any issues with these shifters at all, and I've used them across multiple bikes over the last 2 years, and they just seem to continually work no matter how much abuse you put to them. Now, it is really nice to see that they went with the Shimano SLX rear derailleur on this. This is a little bit lighter than the Dior that they could have put on there. Not much of a difference between those two models, so much so that it's really only the graphics that you're going to notice in the overall performance, but it's nice to see that they went with that little bit of a step up to save just a few grams here and there. You do get the standard Shimano clutch built into this rear derailleur, which is nice because it's going to keep this bike even quieter out on the trail than it already is. Now, something that I really do like to see is that they did go with a Dior cassette. Having a steel cassette on the back of an e-bike is, in my opinion, the best way to go. You can go with higher end cassettes like SLX, XT, or XTR, but the problem is whenever you're running on an eMTB, you're putting so much torque on that rear cassette that it's really better off having a full steel setup. You're gonna get a much longer life out of it. And the little extra weight that you're gonna get between, say, the SLX cassette and the Dior cassette really isn't all that much. And I think having the steel cassette is just gonna last you so much longer. Combined with all of that, you are going to get an HG chain made by Shimano, so it really works well with this whole system. The shifting on this is super smooth with all of this stuff combined, and I don't think you're going to have any issues with dialing this in because all these Shimano parts are specifically designed to work together. Now up front, you are going to get a 34-tooth Miranda chainring on here. This is a brand that I'm not super familiar with, but the overall aesthetics of this particular chainring do look really professional and high quality. And also you are going to get a little bit shorter crank length on this, which I do like to see on any eMTBs. You're going to get a 165 mil on this size large. Now they did put on some really nice DT Swiss H1900 wheels on here. These are completely tubeless ready. I found from my personal experience with them, they sealed up really fast. This actually comes with tubeless valves in the box, which is really cool. Mine did come with tubes pre-installed. That's pretty much typical on any direct-to-order bike. So you will have to convert it over to tubeless if that's something that you want to do. I highly recommend it. Converting over the tubeless with the DT Swiss wheels and also the Knobby Nick Schwabe tires was an absolute breeze. Now, speaking of the Knobby Nick tires, these are one of my favorite style of tires. However, I've been on a trend lately of slashing sidewalls on all of my bikes for some reason, and I happened to slash the sidewall on the back of this bike, and so I had to replace that tire with one that I had in stock. The time that I did get to ride with the Knobby Nick tires on this particular bike, I have to say it's a match made in heaven. I really like Schwabe stuff, and the fact that these are 2.6-inch wide tires really added to the extra grip that you would get on this bike. Now the brake set on this is perfect for eMTBs. It's going to be the Shimano Dior setup. It's going to have 4-piston hydraulic brakes, both front and back, with 180 mil rotors. It might be nice to see more of like a 203, 200 millimeter rotor style on this bike, but in the past month on racing this bike, I didn't experience any fading issues or have any worries that these brakes weren't going to stop me when I was going really fast. Now, just like most mountain bikes these days, this does come with a dropper post on here. This is a relatively smooth dropper post, and I was really pleased to see that this came with a Shimano lever. this actually has a bearing built into it. The industry's been on a kick lately of putting really cheap dropper post levers on in a way to save a little bit of money. And in my opinion, that's kind of the wrong way to go because it makes your dropper post not feel really responsive. But with this Shimano lever with the bearing built inside, this dropper post felt extremely smooth and I was really pleased with it right out of the gate. Now, connected to that dropper post is the exact same seat that I saw whenever I reviewed the XP 919, their cross-country hardtail. And I really like this. This seat is made by Physique and I found that it fit me really, really well. I have had a few other people on this bike and they say that it's a little bit of an uncomfortable seat, but for me personally, I really enjoyed it. It reminded me a lot of the comfort level that I've experienced with the seats that come on a lot of the Marin bikes that I've reviewed. Now, something that I like to see on a lot of my e-bikes that I've reviewed is a removable battery. Most batteries are removable, but sometimes you have to actually drop the motor to be able to pull them out of the frame. But I really like having a door that opens up to be able to remove that battery for a couple of reasons. If this was my personal bike, I may be actually interested in purchasing an extra battery. And if I wanted to go on a really long adventure, I could throw the extra battery in a pack or out in my car and do a whole bunch of loops and not have to worry about not being able to swap out batteries on the fly. But with a battery door, you can do that. Now, with that being said, Superior has a problem with the way that this door is actually designed. I was out actually on a ride and got back to my car and realized that the battery door was actually missing. Now, you don't have to worry about the battery falling out in this case, but this is just a shield, so it's not necessary, but it is a good thing to have on there because if any debris flies up, it's gonna hit this shield and not actually hit the battery. Well, the mechanism that they use to actually latch this door close isn't super reliable. So as you can see on my bike, I took a simple strap that I had from Granite Design that's pretty much designed to be wrapped around your frame and hold an inner tube in case you get a flat. This fit absolutely perfectly and has held this door on without any concern. So if you do pick up one of these bikes, I would recommend picking up an extra strap because there's no guarantee that this battery door isn't going to try to fall off whenever you're going down the trail. And getting a hold of a new battery door may be a little bit of a task. Might as well prevent that from happening by just putting a strap around the bottom of the frame, preventing this battery door from ever falling off while you're going down the trail. Now, the overall feel of this bike for me was definitely right up my alley. It really does feel more like a trail bike than it does an all mountain bike. I would even say that my Polygon T9 feels a little bit more plush than what this bike does, and that's only a 140 travel bike. You can definitely tell that this was made by a company who specializes in XC style bikes. For me, I didn't find it uncomfortable at all, but I have found after talking with a few people who are reviewing this bike also that they're more used to the all mountain style feel, and they felt like this bike really didn't quite live up to the all mountain category. And whenever I described it as the XC Riders all mountain bike, I think that really hit home because you aren't going to get as super plush and supple feel that you would expect out of a 160 travel, especially with the Lyric and the RockShox rear shock. But for me, this bike felt really good on all of my local trails. Having shorter chainstays and the way the suspension interacted with me felt really at home. But if you are used to more of an all mountain, super plush style bike, and you're not used to that XC style, trail style feel, this bike may not be the bike for you. So really take that into consideration. Think about what trails you're going to be riding this on. If they look similar to the trails that you see in this video, then this bike will probably feel really good to you. And if you're used to XC trail style riding, it's probably also going to feel good to you. But if you're in that more enduro, really extreme, really rough, long sustained downhills, this might not be the bike for you. So make sure you take note of that whenever you're looking at getting this bike. Because ultimately, manufacturers can put a whole bunch of stuff on paper, but really the biggest judge is actually getting a hold of a bike, riding it, and seeing if it fits right for you. So out of all the e-mountain bikes that I've ridden, definitely the Bosch CX motor is on the top of the list. I would say the only other motor that comes in close and has surprised me is the Aventon motor that I have on my Aventon Ramblus. And that's kind of crazy considering they're brand new into the motor industry, but having 100 Newton meters of torque on that particular bike, it really does give it that extra oomph that you just don't experience on an 85 Newton meter bike. Now, Comparing this to my Shimano EP6, which is also 85 Newton meters, but has a lower peak wattage, this CX motor is an absolute beast. I think that if you're gonna get an eMTB and you wanna have a motor that you know is tried and true and is one of the best out on the market, this Superior eXF 9039B with the Bosch CX motor is really hard to beat, especially at the current sale price of $3,799. So I plan on racing this and riding this bike over the next 6 months, and I can already tell you I'm absolutely loving this bike. I am sold 100% on the Bosch motor, the Superior bike line altogether. After reviewing 2 of their bikes, an entry-level XC bike and their all-mountain eMTB, I've got to say, this company fits my riding style 100%. Now, just to let you know, taking this bike out on a race, I did a 4-loop race out at my local trail, Sac River, and I have ridden this particular course multiple times. Even on the Aventon, I set a PR on the Aventon, but the day of the race, I set 3 laps were brand new PRs on this particular bike after only owning it for 1 week. This bike really does perform in the XC industry, even though it's an all-mountain platform. So if you guys want to pick one up, I'll put some links down below. Those are affiliated, no extra cost to you, but it helps out this channel. But I'm curious as to what you guys think. Have you ever tried a Superior bike? Do you agree with me that this is more of an XC trail style rider's all-mountain bike? Or do you think that they could have designed this a little bit different to really fit in that all-mountain category? Let me know in the comments below. And also, what do you guys think of these Bosch CX motors? I am super impressed with them. I think that they are top-notch, and I love the clean look that you get on the top tube with this, with no displays whatsoever, just a battery indicator. Makes it feel more like a traditional analog bike, which has that kind of really nostalgic feel to it. All right, guys, if you enjoyed this and you want to see more stuff about Superior bikes, definitely hit the subscribe button. And also, if you could, just hit that like button to push this video out throughout that YouTube algorithm. All right, guys, get out there and ride your bike.